Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's broadcast of the Mars Theater on the Air. Back Alley Productions takes great pleasure in bringing you the third in its series of theatrical productions, 14, by Alice Gerstenberg, directed by Crystal Dawson. Before we get started with the production, we would like to make a few announcements. First, these productions are being brought to you free of charge. During this time of isolation and hardship, we do ask for donations. These donations, from even as little as $1, go into us being able to keep the lights on while the theater doors stay shut for the safety of our community. We ask, if you can, to donate what you can while the theater remains closed. Large and small amounts are always welcome. Just click Support the Show after you enjoy the performance. Second, we would like to acknowledge and thank our sponsors, Dr. David Boyle and the Lafayette Presbyterian Church, Robert and Stephen Wardlaw, Joan Jones, and Richard Chandler. If you are interested in becoming a sponsor, feel free to get in touch with us at backalleyperformances@gmail.com. Thirdly, the voices you will hear bringing the characters of this drama to life are Amy Petula as the narrator, Deb Meeks as Mrs. Pringle, Jason Tenney as Dunham, and Abby Engel as Elaine. And last of all, we ask that you laugh when we are funny, cry when we are sad, and sit back and enjoy. Back Alley Productions presents the Mars Theater on the Air, 14. We open in the opulent dining room of a New York residence in the early 1920s. It is the home of Mr. and Mrs. Horace Pringle and their daughter Elaine. An ornate mahogany table runs the length of the room, with a chair at each end and 6 chairs on each side. It is elaborately set for 14. Dunham, the family's butler, is hovering over the table, giving it a few finishing touches. At this moment, Mrs. Pringle, an excitable but vivacious and fashionable woman, enters carrying a bouquet of flowers in a wrapped box.
Dunham, I've just had word from Mr. Harper that he was called away to the bedside of a friend who is very ill. He sent me these flowers. It's a good thing he did. I don't approve of young men refusing dinner invitations at the very last minute.
I'll take the box and paper, Mrs. Pringle.
It's too bad. After you've said it all so beautifully. And it is getting late. Someone might be coming any moment. How's Cook?
Cook's in a temper, as always, madam.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. She's like an actress. The better the temper, the better the performance. As long as she serves us a good dinner, I don't care how much she swears. The rest of you can just keep out of her way. Where's Gustave?
I'm sorry to have to say it, madam, but there's such an awful blizzard out, he's sweeping off the sidewalk.
Oh, dear me, yes. I should have ordered an awning. But who expected a storm like this?
As Mrs. Pringle gazes anxiously out the window at the blizzard, Elaine, a young debutante who is as impeccably attired and as flighty as her mother, enters.
Here are the place cards, Mother, and the diagram. Shall I put them around?
Yes, dear Elaine. I'm going up to look after your father. He's so helpless about his ties. Remove one plate, Dunham.
Remove one plate, madam? Oh, madam, it is a certainty you wouldn't sit down with 13.
Oh, 13. Why, you're right. 13. We can never sit down with 13. Oh, that's all due to Mr. Harper's negligence. He's just one of those careless men who never answer their invitations in time. His flowers, indeed, to make me forgive him? Oh, now look at the trouble he's put me to. 13. I wonder whom I could get to come in the last minute. Quick, Elaine, quick, help me think. See.
Well, There's always Uncle George.
Oh, he never opens his head.
Mr. Morgan, madam. He always tells a joke or two.
That's clever of you. Hello, Central. Lakeview 5971. At once, please. Elaine, dear. Elaine, your hair is much too tight. Pull it out. Pull it out. Come here. Come here. Oh, Mr. Morgan. Well, this is Mrs. Pringle speaking from across the street. Yes. Yes. Well, when Mr. Morgan comes in, please tell him to call me up right away. I want him to dine with us in about 10 minutes. You expect him?
While still on the phone, Mrs. Pringle pulls and twists Elaine's hair until it's fluffy and curly, much like a French poodle.
Oh, well, have him call me right away. Now, if he shouldn't get it, then what'll I do?
Well, Mother, I don't have to sit at the table. It's your party anyway, and everyone's married and older than I am.
Didn't I put you next to Oliver Farnsworth? He's worth millions.
Well, he won't be giving me any.
Well, can't he marry you? Aren't you going to try to make a good match for yourself? I fling every eligible man I can at your head. Can't you finish the rest yourself?
Well, it's no use, Mother, you trying to marry me off to anyone as important as he is. He frightens me to death. I lose my tongue. I'm as afraid of him as I'd be afraid of the Prince of Wales.
Oh, the Prince of Wales. Oh, what I wouldn't give to have the Prince of Wales in my house. New York has lost its heart to him. I was just telling Mr. Farnsworth yesterday that I'd give anything to have the Prince here. It would establish my social position for life. And I've such a reputation for being a wonderful hostess. Dear me, the phone. Hello? Mrs. Sedgwick? Yes. Yes, this is Mrs. Pringle. What? No. Caught in a snowdrift? Can't get another car?
Mrs. Pringle, visibly excited, puts her hand over the telephone and speaks delightedly to Elaine.
Good. The widow can't come. That leaves us 12. Remove 2 plates, Dunham.
Yes, ma'am.
As Mrs. Pringle returns to her telephone conversation with Mrs. Sedgwick, she once again adopts her disheartened tone of voice.
Oh, what a shame. I'm heartbroken. Oh, my dear. How can we get along without you? But have you really tried? Oh, I'm reduced to tears. Goodbye, dear. I am glad she dropped out. Central, give me Lakeview 5971. Dunham, with 2 less, you can save 2 cocktails and at least 4 glasses of champagne. Has Mr. Morgan come in yet? Well, don't give him the message I telephoned before about coming across the street to Mrs. Pringle's for dinner. It's too late. You understand? Well, anyway, I've invited Clem, returned my indebtedness, and saved my champagne besides.
The liquor is getting low, madam. What with prohibition and entertaining so much.
But Mother, if you only have 12 people, Father can't sit at the head of the table.
But he has to sit at the head. It looks too undignified when the man of the house is pushed to the side.
Well, there's no other way. Look, there must be a woman at each end.
Oh, how absurd. Oh, I always forget, of course. 12 is an impossible number. Let me see the place cards, Elaine. Let's see. Oh, dear. No, I don't want any of these women at the head. There's Mrs. Darby, such a cat. I wouldn't give her the armor. And Mrs. You answer it, Dunham.
Hello, Pringle's residence. A message? Yes, sir. What, sir? Mr. Darby, the doctor says your baby has the chicken pox.
Chicken pox? Elaine!
Mother!
Yes, sir. Mr. Darby sends his apologies, but owing to the transmutability of the disease, Mr. and Mrs. Darby feel obliged to regret, and also their house guests, Mr. and Mrs. Fleetwood.
Oh, that's 4 out.
Well, then you're only 8. Quick, the plates, Dunham.
As Elaine begins removing chairs and gathering silver and plates feverishly, Mrs. Pringle grows more and more hysterical with anxiety and goes to Elaine's aid.
Oh, dear.
With so much unaccustomed help, Dunham confusedly begins removing items, but in his haste begins dropping the silver.
Oh, dear. Oh.
And breaking plates.
Dear.
His fingers are all thumbs.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Don't we know someone to invite the last minute?
Hatwoods?
They don't serve drinks when they entertain. I can't afford to invite them to drink mine.
The Greens.
She's not interesting enough.
Mr. Conley?
But he never makes a dinner call, even after all the times I have invited him.
Hester Longley.
Not at the same table with you and Oliver Farnsworth. She's far too pretty, too clever, too...
Where's our address book?
Elaine grabs the book off the table and frantically flips through the pages, looking at the names.
The Tuppers.
The Tuppers? Oh, good heavens, Elaine! 6 in the family?
Well, that would get us back to 14, and then Father could sit at the head of the table.
Oh, well, we'll try them. I'll rush and tell your father to hold up the drawing room.
Ridgeway, 9325. This is Elaine Pringle. What Tupper am I speaking to? Oh, Ella, hello! Well, I hope you haven't finished your dinner. Well, you see, we had a party arranged here, and at the last moment, everybody's been dropping out. The blizzard. Well, can't you flock your family around the corner and eat with us? Mother and I thought we knew you well enough to call you like this at the 7th hour. You would? Oh, fine. 6 more plates, Dunham. What?
Elaine hesitates a moment, stuttering. She is utterly distressed. She muffles the phone and turns to Dunham.
Dunham, get Mother quick.
As Dunham hurries from the room, Elaine returns to her telephone conversation, not at all enthusiastically.
Yes. Yes. Of course. Love it. Why, certainly. Yes, my dear. All right. Oh, great Caesar, now what have I done?
As Elaine flutters about in an increasing panic, Mrs. Pringle and Dunham rush back into the room.
What's the matter? Elaine, what is it?
Now I've done it. Now I've just done it. But I couldn't get out of it. I just couldn't. You weren't here, and I always lose my head and bungle things.
But what? Don't keep us waiting like this. What is it?
I invited Ella and the family, and she accepted. And then she said that they had 2 house guests and would it be all right? And of course I said it would. And now we're 16.
16? But madam, the table's not that long.
Elaine! That's just like you. No tact, no worldly wisdom. If I'd been at the phone, I'd have politely said that my table simply
But you
wasn't-
weren't at the phone. You ought to attend to such messages yourself. You know I always lose my head.
But the dishes, madam, and we only have 14 squabs.
I won't eat any.
But I must not be disgraced. We'll have to make the best of it. Insert another board. Dunham, retrieve the other table board.
Of course.
But, Mother, I needn't sit at the table.
You're going to sit right next to Oliver Farnsworth. Now, I don't wish to hear another word about it.
But can't we squeeze them all in without all the work of adding another board? If I move the plates and chairs closer together, I might just be...
Oh, have you forgotten that Mr. Tupper weighs something like 250 pounds and Mrs. Conley has no waistline? It can't be done.
Dunham re-enters, struggling to carry a large, heavy table leaf.
Cook is in a rage, madam. She says she has only prepared for 14.
I can't help it. She'll have to prepare for 16. Tell her to open cans of soup and vegetables and...
But the ice cream forms and the gelatin molds.
I'll pretend that I don't like them.
And I'll pretend I'm on a diet.
But I really wouldn't have to sit at the table.
Be still. Telephone. Now what? Don't answer it. Oh, it's driving me mad. Hello. Yes, this is Mrs. Pringle. Oh. Yes, Jessica. What? The blizzard? You're cold? Too dangerous?
Mrs. Pringle gestures frantically to Dunham, as if she were trying to land aircrafts, waving away his attempt to add the extra leaf to the table. Dunham, Mrs. Pringle, and Elaine are so ecstatic and relieved that the dinner party might yet be saved, they almost succumb to giddy dancing. However, Mrs. Pringle is careful to feign disappointment over the telephone.
Oh, Jessica, you poor dear. Yes. Oh, your husband's right. It would be foolhardy. Well, put on a mustard plaster, hot toddy, go to bed. So sorry. There. That's wonderful. Now we are just 14.
But the cards, they're all wrong. Only 6 are coming who we invited originally. You'll have to make another diagram. How do you want them seated?
Give it to me.
Here's some fresh cards.
Oh dear, what a mess. I spent hours over that diagram. So much depends upon having guests seated harmoniously. There's the front door, Dunham. I told Annie to answer it for you, but no, peek into the drawing room and tell me who it is.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, you murderous instrument! What have you to say? Now what? Hello, Mr. Farnsworth. Mr. Oliver Farnsworth? No. You're his secretary? He's what? Instructed you to make his excuses. He had to leave for Boston at once on very important business. Oh, how dare he! How dare he! The last moment like this. No regard for a hostess's feelings. No regard for the effort she goes to provide an evening's enjoyment. And such a good dinner I planned. And he promised he would come. Business. No, I don't believe it. He didn't want to exert himself, was afraid of freezing in the blizzard, as if he didn't have a half-dozen limousines to carry him to the door. Selfishness, downright rudeness, and worth millions. Just a match for you, Helene. And I was bound you should meet him and sit next to him at the table. And now I don't know when I can give you a chance like that again. I'm perfectly furious. I'll never speak to him again. I won't be treated this way.
But perhaps he really did have business and was called away.
And I, one of the most important hostesses in this city, people clamoring to receive my invitations. All my affairs are a success. I insist that they shall be. I can't have a failure. I won't have a failure. He was my most important guest. He's such a man's man. So important financially. Every other man considers it an honor to meet him, and now not coming? I'm furious. I'm furious. It's all this damnable blizzard.
Now I will have to stay away from the table. His not coming makes us 13 again.
Go to bed. Go up to the nursery. I'll send you milk and crackers.
But Mother, it's not my fault that he had business out of town.
Yes, it is. If you'd perk up a bit and not be so timid and make something of yourself, he would hear about your attractions from other men and be curious to meet you himself. Oh, what a family I have. No one to help me with my ambitions. Go to bed. I certainly won't sit down to 13. Go to bed. Get out of my sight.
Elaine prepares to leave, but before she takes more than a few steps, Dunham re-enters the dining room.
It was Mr. Morgan at the door, madam.
Mr. Morgan? But I telephoned his maid to tell him not to come.
He couldn't have received the second message, madam, for I heard him explaining to Mr. Pringle how happy he was to receive your telephone invitation.
That makes you 13 again. Unless you don't want me to go to bed.
Of course, I don't want you to go to bed. Okay, we're back to where we started. 14, Dunham.
I'll get the cocktails ready, madam. Annie told me there were several motors making their way through the snow. It's late now, and Cook's swearing about the dinner getting too dry.
I won't answer it.
I should say not. Hello. What is it? Yes. Yes. Oh, Mrs. Tupper. Yes, Mrs. Tupper. But now you must come. We're prepared for you. Yes. Yes, for 8 of you. Your daughter told my daughter about your house guests, and we are delighted to have them. But now we're set for you. But every plate is set. But your daughter was quite right. It wasn't an imposition at all. But you must come now. Of course my daughter had authority to give it. Yes, she had the authority to invite the guest. 8 isn't at all a big number. there's room. The table is all set. But I beg of you. Yes, but my dear, you're not imposing. But how foolish of you to take that stand. Why, my dear, my dear. Hello. Now, what do you think of that? Mrs. Tupper is perfectly furious at Ella for telling you about the house guests and says Ella has no tact, that nothing would induce her to bring 8 when we invited 6. So she's leaving Ella and Henry at home. Only 6 are coming. Remove 2 plates, Dunham. We're 12 after all.
But if you leave it at 12, Father can't sit at the end.
Oh, I shall go mad! I'll never entertain again. Never, never. People ought to know whether they're coming or not. But they accept and regret and regret and accept. They drive me wild.
Excuse me, madam.
Oh, this is my last dinner party, my very last. A fiasco. An utter fiasco. And a haphazard crowd hurried together when I had planned everything so beautifully. Now, how shall I seat them? How shall I seat them? Let's see. If I put Mr. Tupper here and Mrs. Conley there, then Mrs. Tupper has to sit next to her husband. Mr. Morgan there. It's impossible. I might as well put their names in a hat and draw them out at random. Never again. Never. I'm through. Through with society, with parties, with friends. I'll wipe my slate clean. They'll miss my entertainments. They'll wish they had been more considerate. After this, I am going to live for myself. I'm going to be selfish and hard and unsociable, and I will drink my liquor myself instead of offering it gratis to the whole town. I'm through with men like Oliver Farnsworth. I don't care how rich they are, how influential they are, how important they are. They're nothing without courtesy and consideration. Oh, business. Oh, nonsense. Didn't want to come. Didn't want to meet a sweet, pretty girl. Didn't want to marry her. Well, he's not good enough for you. Don't you marry him. Don't you dare marry him. I won't let you marry him. Do you hear? If you tried to elope or anything like that, I'd break it off. Yes, I would. Oliver Farnsworth will never get recognition from me. He's beneath my notice. I hate Oliver Farnsworth.
At that moment, Dunham returns, carrying a letter on a silver tray.
A note from Mr. Farnsworth, madam.
A note from Mr. Farnsworth?
Yes, madam. There are 2 strange gentlemen in the lower hall. They presented this letter. He said he was the secretary. All the other guests are upstairs in the drawing room, madam. I counted 12 in all, including you and Mr. Pringle and Miss Elaine. But the 2 gentlemen downstairs, madam, are waiting for your answer. One gentleman's face looked very familiar, madam, but I just can't place him. Although I'm sure I've seen his face somewhere.
Seen his face somewhere? Oh, my goodness. Elaine, it's the Prince of Wales.
The secretary said you cut off the telephone or Central disconnected you. He was about to tell you Mr. Farnsworth knew that the blizzard had prevented His Highness from keeping an engagement way uptown.
The Prince of Wales, sitting in my lower hall, waiting for me to ask him to dinner.
Then wouldn't we be 13 again?
There's the secretary, miss. He is his bodyguard.
Oh.
Certainly. The secretary, Elaine. We shall be 14 at dinner. Serve the cocktails, Dunham. The guest may sit anywhere they choose. I shall bring the prince in with me.
Oh, but Mother, wasn't it nice of Oliver Farnsworth to send in a prince in his place?
Well, didn't I always say that Oliver Farnsworth was the most considerate of men?
I think I shall like Mr. Farnsworth.
Oh, silly child! It's too late now to like Mr. Farnsworth. It's time now to like the prince. I always manage somehow to be the most successful of hostesses. Oh, thank God for the blizzard.
As Mrs. Pringle retires to the drawing room to greet her guest, she is once again her old high-spirited and effervescent self. Elaine will soon be the Princess of Wales, and she will be known as the greatest society lady the city of New York has ever known. After all, there's very little choice in the matter. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of Back Alley Productions On the Air. We hope you join us for our next episode. As always, we hope you stay safe and well. Good night.
Since I